Well, hello there, and again, welcome to another session here on the web of Bible studies or perhaps a sermon series that we're going through. We hope that you're finding the material edifying and helpful in your walk and growth in knowledge and grace of Jesus Christ, because that certainly is our intent. We wanted to take, though, before we get started, this moment just to remind all of you that if indeed you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, feel free to go ahead and email us at billw@cgi.org. That's billw@cgi.org. Feel free to write at any time through the course of the presentations, because we want to know what you're thinking, and if indeed we're missing something that you'd like us to address, to draw our attention to it. So don't forget, ask some questions or make some comments and help us out with some feedback. We certainly do appreciate that as well. And again, that address is billw@cgi.org. And go ahead and feel free to do it at any time. So right now, without any further delay, let's get back to the sessions that we're studying this week.
Back over to Revelation 13. We're going to jump right back into this. We've got a lot of territory to cover, so I may be speaking a little bit faster than usual, but nevertheless, I hope we can get through some of this, and as a result, hopefully be edified by some of this information I'm going to share with you today. We were introduced last week, part 3, with this word mark. From the Greek, it is charagma, and essentially means, as I mentioned, and I will remind all of you, scratch, etching. It means a stamp, a badge, even notch. You could stretch it out to mean an incision or slash. You could even mention a jag or a dent. This is a very important word as you begin to see, as we came to understand, that certainly, and we don't want to dismiss the fact, that Sunday plays a part, I'm sure, in the mark of the beast, because we know in Daniel 7, we all are aware of those scriptures that I read before with respect to the fact that he, that is the beast, is going to have the authority to change times and seasons. He thinks. That's what the Bible says. He thinks. I always like that because only God can do that. He thinks he does, but he really doesn't. But that's beside the point. The fact, though, remains that we ourselves can see that, yes, Sunday keeping is indeed perhaps going to be part of the ingredient of it. And I took the time to introduce to you the Sunday Alliance. Some of you maybe perhaps were unaware of that particular special interest group, but it's a very prominent group in Europe primarily that is driving under the guise of relaxation, family time, disarming you, to the point where you think that, well, because of convenience, Sunday sounds like a pretty good thing. You ought to be able to do that. And obviously the agenda is to drive a legislation to make it mandatory, ultimately, there throughout the European continent, and have people, of course, abiding by the Sunday law, of which then would engage, like we are familiar with many years ago, the old blue laws, where everything shuts down. Remember those old blue laws? You couldn't buy alcohol, you couldn't buy food, because all the stores were shut and everything, because it was a Sunday blue law. And as a result, some of that, I think, is also part of that Sunday Alliance agenda. But again, I want to reemphasize the fact, I'm not here to dismiss Sunday keeping as part and parcel to the mark of the beast. There may be a lot of different angles and nuances that are associated with it, but the fact of it is you cannot ignore two things. The word charagma, what it means, in light of the fact that you know that it means scratch, it means incision, it means dent, it could mean notch, it could mean stamp, badge, could mean a lot of things along these lines, and then you connect that dot of the word with the technology that we find ourselves surrounded by, and we're going to talk about that today. We're going to go down this technological rabbit hole, and it's going to be a wild ride, I'm sure, for some of us, because frankly, I've been studying this pretty much the last couple of weeks in preparation for this presentation, and I've learned so much in respect to some of the things that are already in market, already being used, and where it is pointing to is beyond, in some cases, our own imaginations. But keep in mind, when it's thought about and when it's talked about and when it's planned and engineers get their hands on certain ideas, there's no telling what mankind can come up with. And I think many of us will agree with that fact, that man is pretty much capable of almost anything out of his imagination. I mean, you look at where we are today. Do you realize, I was thinking about this, just what would, if I took this phone and I said, well, Noah, what do you think of this thing? What do you think of this thing? And Noah, he would be standing there like, what? And I'd show him all the things that you can do. Once he gets into my little code, and lo and behold, I can play, and I got people in here. I got Strong's Concordance in here. I'm carrying it all in here. I've got your names, some of you, addresses. I can pull you up and take you down. I can delete you. I can put you up, you know. Noah would be astonished. Matter of fact, he would think I'm probably an alien, because all of this would be alien to him. Think of Moses. Think of even King David. The phone itself is a magical instrument that those guys, they would be astonished to watch. If you had a television, seeing, and they'd probably say, how did that guy get in there? How did he get in there? Because they couldn't understand the technology of what they're seeing from their perspective when they come up out of the dirt, if you know what I'm saying. What do you think Moses would think of a jet airplane to get into this tubular pressurized tube and fly at 35,000 feet at 500 miles an hour? Whoa! When he's used to, you know, just kind of wagons and horses and donkeys, you know. But you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. I mean, it's amazing that we have what we have. So my point is that the technology development that we see ourselves surrounded by, and you connect the dot with this word charagma and what it can mean, you can't help but to think that there's going to be a little bit more to this Sunday keeping idea. Not that it's going to be not part of it. I'm saying that it is, but nevertheless, I think it's very plausible and reasonable in thought and thinking, predicated on the situation we're surrounded by and the technologies that we see coming on board, that it's very, very possible that the beast is going to create some kind of device of which is going to be used to do a lot of things for his control of the population. In 2019, I went to the Bible Sabbath Association's conference out in Tyler, Texas. I was there representing the Church of God International and had opportunity to give a couple of presentations. One of those presentations, and you can watch this, by the way, it's on our website at cgi.org. Go across to media, hit media, drop down to Bible Study Series. Bible Study Series, page 3, you will see BSA, that's the Bible Sabbath Association. Click on that. You can watch all of the presentations from all of the people that gave them during that day. We had, though, during that time, a roundtable discussion on of all things, the mark of the beast. And I had a 6-minute little spiel that I went ahead and had opportunity to kind of lay down some ideas and talk about this particular mark of the beast. And in so doing, made it very clear, and I want to make it clear again, because I think it's important that as we go through this exercise, this presentation, and you become introduced to some of the things that I'm going to share with you, that you understand. And let me qualify myself so that I'm not misunderstood by a lot of people that maybe just don't know me and are still kind of getting used to my humor and my sarcasm. And I had one guy think that when I said don't listen to Fox News, don't listen to CNN, don't listen to MSNBC, that I was telling everybody not to watch those programs. No, I was kidding. I was being sarcastic. I was just quipping off the cuff, so to speak. You know, I mean, I watch CNN. I watch MSNBC. It's good to see both sides, you know. I watch One American News and Newsmax, and I read a lot of things, New York Times and so forth. So I try to get a rounded view of many things, and I encourage all of us to do that, lest we end up becoming victimized by what they call an echo chamber and become brainwashed, you know, in certain things. Because I always found it interesting that MSNBC used to report on what was that guy's name? O'Reilly and his sexual missteps on MSNBC, but Fox never covered it for some reason. And if you watched Fox, you would never know that Mr. O'Reilly was under actual investigation and litigation of sexually harassing some woman. I had to find that out while I was watching MSNBC. So that I just say that to illustrate the fact that certainly we do want to listen to both sides of the coin, and I by no means want to be interpreted as trying to discourage people from watching certain sources for their edification and information. But let me first mention this before we go down to this rabbit hole in Revelation chapter 13, bringing back your attention to this statement, as mentioned by John here, where he says, and he causes, and we covered this word, this Greek word causes, which means basically to be mandated, to be required, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive or to be given this charagma, this etch, this scratch, this dig, this incision. That's what the word means, basically. Graven, it can even mean that too, on their right hand or in their foreheads. And that no man might buy or sell, save he that has the charagma, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here's his wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of not a demon, it's not the number of Satan, it's the number of a man. Although 666 is oftentimes certainly related to demonic and satanic influences, and rightly so, appropriately. I just don't want you to get too far off the rails, because the association, of course, can certainly be implicit of what's behind the man. And we know the beast is demon-possessed, as we're understood and as we see listed over there in Revelation when talking about him and the false prophet also who has a demon in him. But with that being said, the point here that I want to bring our attention back to is to keep in mind what this word, this Greek word, charagma, really means. And if you haven't already, write down a few of these words. As I mentioned, I think it's important that we get this established: scratch, etching, stamp, badge, notch, incision, slash, sculptured, graven. I mean, these are a lot of words that this mark, whatever it is, can mean. And when you begin to understand the technologies that we're about to find ourselves being faced with here as I explain some of these things, you're going to begin, I would think anyway, if you're like me, start connecting some dots, smell the coffee, start get ready, because this technology is already out in the market to a certain extent, to a certain degree, and being used under certain guises, which we'll get into. I don't want to get ahead of myself here before I mention a few other things. So let's go down this technological rabbit hole and take some time here. We have a few minutes here ahead of us, so we'll see how far we get through all of this, because I've got a lot of material I want to share with you, brother, not so much from the Bible. We're premising this part 4. This is part 4 of a, thus far, a 4-part series. I don't know if we're going to get done with it or not. But the point of it is that in this particular case, we are founded on where we are. I wanted to get back to Revelation 13, 15 through 17 there, or 16 through 18. I'm sorry, 16 through 18, to establish the platform that we're speaking from and what we're launching off of. Now, also, again, let me qualify myself, because I'm going to be talking about some things that for some might think that it's conspiratorial. Some may think, man, he's off the rails. Or some will say, wow, I never thought about that already being done. So, first of all, let me just say this and level the playing field. I'm not gaslighting anybody. If you don't know what that word means, get your computers right now, look it up, gaslighting, because I'm not going to digress to what it means. Just, I'm not doing that. All I want to do, this is all I want to do, is I want to talk about the technologies that we're going to talk about, which is actually just an abbreviated amount that we're going to be addressing. But two things. One, on what those technologies are currently, presently, and actually being used today in our own society, under our noses, and of which you can partake of if you wanted to. It's for you to take for, as some would say, convenience, ease, or importance, because I've got one and you don't. You know, this kind of stuff. And this is going on under these guises for people to say, yeah, give me, give me, give me, give me, give me. Not really realizing the ramifications and the implications and the extended questions of where it's leading. Now, this just might be me, because I'm kind of a suspicious kind of a character anyway, and I like to, investigate. I suspect, I don't listen to everything I'm told, and I'm kind of slow to embrace things. But there are some things, brethren, and this is important for you to recognize, that we're going to address that are already engaged, already being done, already being used. Secondly, I also want to talk about some things that are not yet being used, not yet being done, not yet implemented or deployed, but are definitely on the drawing table, are definitely being researched, are definitely in the process of being developed for future use and for future exploration and for additional things that who knows what some of this stuff can be used for. And as you will begin to see in terms of what this technology offers, I give you freedom. Let your imagination rock and roll, because that's where we're all at right now. That's where we're all at right now. A lot of it's being sold under the guise that it's going to be good for us. It's going to add convenience to our life. It's going to make our life so simple. Why, just think, ladies, wearing a bikini at some resort where you don't have to worry about your credit card or your purse being stolen. You can just walk out to the swimming pool or out on the beach in your bikini with no associated accessories and not worry about anything being lost, because you're all self-contained to purchase what you need to purchase with whatever you want. And how can that be? You're going to see in a minute. You're going to see in a minute. And this is how some of this stuff is sold to us, brethren, in many respects. So I want us to understand that I'm not trying in any way, shape, or form to scare us. I really don't want to scare us. I want to be mature about this. I just want to inform. I think in the backdrop of what we're seeing today, I think over the past year, 2020, what we've all gone through, you there on the internet as well, what we've all gone through, and now the results that we're seeing, we're going to address some of those things as we go forward here. We are beginning to understand certain impacts, effects, and effects of certain legislation and or fears that are being exploited and or advanced in some ways for, in some cases, frankly, the purpose of control in some areas, not all areas, some areas, of course. But with that being said, I just want you to all understand that the discussion that I want to go into today is basically something that hopefully will be viewed as informative. So let's start with China. China. If you go to China, you need a telephone pretty much to operate as you go through everything and anywhere. China is the largest, right now, the largest mobile phone market in the world. It bypassed the United States in the year 2013 as the largest iPhone market or smartphone market in the world. 700 million Chinese people have a telephone. They do everything with this phone. They swipe, they go through gates, they buy. You know, just like you probably see people at Starbucks, they buy with their phone. They put the phone under the RFID thing, and they buy their coffee, or they buy their, banana bread, or whatever it may be. If I go to a Cleveland Browns football game, I can't buy a physical paper ticket anymore. I've got it downloaded to my telephone, go to the game with my phone in my pocket, and then when I get to the gate, I got to bring it up, and I put it under the RFID, and I get in. So we're moving toward that here in the United States, but believe you me, China is heads and shoulders above us by a lot. I mean, in 1988, the mobile phone growth or mobile phone market commenced in 1988 in China. 97, there were 10 million users. In 2002, from 10 million in 97 to 2002, 180 million. And then from 202 to 205, 180 to 240 million. And today, as I mentioned, 700 million Chinese people have iPhones, of which, as I say, they do everything from purchasing, reading, tickets, identification, posting pictures, messaging, do their banking, and some of you probably even do your banking online. You don't have to really go to the bank to do things. I mean, it's all just pretty much online, virtually exchanging. You can wire money from one account to another. I do that a lot of times where I have money in one account, so I need to go in another account because I got to pay a bill from this account, but I can't. I don't have enough money, so I got to switch from this one to that one, and so forth and so on. So a lot of us are already familiar with some of these things that are already being used on the telephone, and the telephone becomes now almost, as you can tell based on how many people really are always looking at their phone, on just how important that phone is. I could give you some statistics, although I don't want to digress because I don't have the time, on phone addiction. It is a fact. It is a fact. As a matter of fact, it's so much of a fact that if some people get their phone taken away and they can't find it and they lose it for a day or two or three, they start going to the heebie-jeebies, and start getting anxiety attacks because they got to get on that phone to find out what's going on. I want to know, like the Enquirer newspaper, I want to know. And if they can't know, that causes anxiety. And in some cases, that's a real feeling and a real thing that occurs, and consequently, needless to say, people do actually, in fact, experience that for sure. So China right now is basically in another mode. They are putting up, I think it is over 500 million cameras. They are intent in attempting to facial identify or profile all of their citizens by the end of the year 2021. That's how aggressive they are. You go to China, they know who you are in probably less than 5 seconds. And it goes to the point, Mike James and I did a program, a web chat on artificial intelligence, which we will go into here in a moment. And if any of you want to watch that, I think it would be a good follow-up to this one. You can go again to our CGI.org website, go across the top to Armor of God, hit on that, drop down selection, hit on web chats, and then just scroll to find the AI web chat discussion that Mike James and I did. You'll find a lot of information there. It's about a 35-minute presentation with two guys sitting in a chair, just kind of talking back and forth. And it has a lot of information there that will help you to understand a little bit about what AI is. But the reality of this is that the phone, this phone, is archaic. This is nothing. This is nothing compared to what is coming down the line. And it's amazing. It is amazing on what is already in action. So let me share with you here a little bit of information that I want to explore here with you. And this comes from this source. I went ahead and found this very interesting source called ridingthebeast.com. ridingthebeast.com. And in this gentleman goes ahead and he writes, it's likely that for security, the RFID, and that stands for, by the way, radio frequency identification, and you see them in grocery stores, you see them, like I said, at the Browns Gate where you enter in, you see them at Starbucks, and in many areas where you might use your phone to pay for certain services or items. At any rate, these readers are also called, interestingly enough, these RFID readers are also called interrogators. Well, they will require, and they're looking at this, requiring a second means of validating a person's identity. That validation, and I go on here and read, might occur through the fingerprint or iris, that is in your eye, at the same time the RFID microchip is read in the hand or forehead. Both forms of biometrics, that's a term you want to get familiar with, these biometrics, that's basically a term of organic and machines, organic and inorganic, organic and machines. The biometrics are already routine in the security realm. So like in many government facilities, I'm sure in the Pentagon, though I've never been working behind the scenes in the Pentagon, but I'm sure they have certain secure areas where you've got to identify yourself not only by your badge, but perhaps even with your eye or with your thumb or your finger. Even my phone, I have to use my fingerprint to identify me, and I think now correct me if I'm wrong, some Apple phones, now it's all facial recognition. All facial recognition. They're profiling your face, and of course that data goes off to some database of which now they know, that Bill Watson is bald-headed and he's no longer got gray hair or long hair, and he's looking like now he's got a beard and a mustache. He didn't before. He was clean-shaven. We got, I'm pretty much all updated, and it doesn't take long to do that because the databases are huge, needless to say. But at any rate, we go on here. Now, a company called VeriChip manufactures and markets by Applied Digital Solutions, that's a subgroup of their company, VeriChip, and has already injected into the upper arm on the right to be used as payment in place of credit cards, even in the Baja Beach Club. And Christine, over there in Spain, you're probably familiar with this because this is over near Barcelona, where Christine is watching us from, and she usually does, and consequently, I'm sure is familiar with the Baja Resort that affords the ladies, as I was mentioning, the bikinis don't have to carry your purse. You don't have to put your, your credit card in here or back here or in here, You could just go ahead and walk around, and if you want to pay for something, you just do that. Or as you will find, in between here, they implant this little device. It's smaller than a piece of rice, and it goes right in here, and all you got to do now is just, you pay for this, you pay for that, and you just move on, and it's right here in your hand already. And the Baja Resort basically does indeed have that. Now, let me share with you a little bit about this company, VeriChip, and some insight on them. The microchip implant in humans, and I'm quoting, a human microchip implant is typically an identifying integrated circuit device or RFID transponder encased in silicate glass. That was my business. We used to rinse the silicates for the manufacturing of these things. And implemented in the body of a human being. It's injected in the body. They're designed for that. That's what they're designed for. This type of subdermal implant usually contains a unique ID number that can be linked to information contained in an external database, such as personal identification, law enforcement, medical history, medication, allergies, and even contact information can all be contained in this little chip and provide who's ever looking for information to upload it to a main drive or a hard drive on a CRT and be able to read, oh, this guy's a diabetic, oh, he's taking this medication, oh, he's got this, that, and the other issue on the medical side, or, oh, he's a convicted felon, oh, look at this, he's got speeding tickets out galore, oh, and they can get all this stuff on you in a matter of minutes out of this little chip, if indeed they wanted to, and that's what this thing is for. Interestingly enough, and they have a little history here. I've got this off of Wikipedia, by the way. Any of you can probably get the same thing off Wikipedia. Just put in VeriChip and probably download a lot of this information I'll be quoting from. But at any rate, in 1998, the technology actually really commenced, and it was the first experiments with radio frequency or RFID implants, and they were carried out in 1998 by a British scientist, a guy named Kevin Warwick. So in 1998, it really started to commence, and as far as we know, that was the first recorded implant of these microchips in 1998. So that's about 22 years now that it's been going on and developing along the way, not linearly. exponentially. Oh yeah, it's getting much faster and bigger, and wait till you see where this leads us. At any rate, let's just, I'll skip over all the years, 04, 05, 09, 2014, 2018. If you download this, you can read all of that. I don't have the time. But in 2020, let's come up to today, last year, last year, because this is 2021. In August, Neuralink, a new corporation by none other than Elon Musk, Tesla, the CEO of Tesla, you may know him by. He's got another company called Neuralink. Get it? Neurological? Neuralink. Neuralink. And Elon Musk revealed a company directed live video podcasting showcasing a pig called Gertrude with a coin-sized computer chip that they implanted in her brain to demonstrate his ambitious plans to create a working brain-to-machine interface. You see where they're going? And this is Elon Musk. He will continue. Believe me, he's that kind of a guy. And he's got a lot of money to really do what he is intending to do. Notable people that already have implants, and they're living with them and doing business with them. This guy named Martin Weismeyer, Dutch marketing manager of Bitcoin. Robert, Bitcoin. Yeah, I got a lot of information on Bitcoin and crypto currencies. And as a result, even today, people are investing in a lot of them. And if I brought them up on my phone under my stock market software here, there are literally pages. It's not only Bitcoin. Bitcoin gets all the press, but there are a lot of these little cryptocurrency companies that are indeed in business and working alongside with as competitors to Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is the one that gets a lot of the press. But at any rate, this guy, Martin Weismeyer, Dutch marketing manager for Bitcoin ATM manufacturing General Bytes, placed an RFID chip in both of his hands to store his Bitcoin private keys and business card. Patrick Landhead sent a bio payment of €1 worth of Bitcoin using a chip embedded in his hand. And I say only as a sidebar here, you can begin to see how cryptocurrencies can be used to where it leads to a cashless society. And cash in your pocket, the money that you carry, this kind of stuff will become obsolete. No need for it. As a matter of fact, security. You don't want to carry cash, and you shouldn't really in some cases, especially if you're traveling. But the point of it is, a lot of this stuff, again, under the guise of security, convenience, all kinds of things, recovery, tracking, auditing, these are the purposes. A lot of this stuff is sold to us on the basis of that gets us to surrender. Well, yeah, give me one of them. I'll take one of those because it'll make my life easier, of course. So at any rate, I continue on here. Marcel Varello, he had an NXP chip coated in BioGlass 8625 inserted into his hand between his forefinger and thumb, allowing him to open secure elevators, doors at work, print from secure printers, unlock his mobile phone in home, store his digital business cards for transfer of mobile phones, and enabled for NFC. NFC meaning essentially the near-frequency communication. I think that's what it stands for, near-frequency communication. Or near-field communication, kind of like Bluetooth, so to speak. It's close to you, so therefore you can communicate to it whatever you're communicating to wirelessly. Emil Grafstra, CEO of VivoKey and Dangerous Things, that's the name of his company, VivoKey and Dangerous Things, has gained prominence for being an inventor and business commercial distributor of subdermal RFID and NFC implants on world stage, implanted in both hands with his company Implants. He aims to bring awareness to the growing implementation movement. An implementation movement. There's a movement to get all of us implemented in subdermal chips. In this particular case, as they say, popular usage are magnetic implants, counterceptive implants. I didn't get into that one. Access card, that was a joke, by the way. Access cards, travel cards, bank cards. Digital identity is also part of the use. I continue on off this article from Wikipedia. Medical records. Researchers have examined microchip implants in humans in the medical field, and they indicate that there are potential benefits and risks to incorporating the device in the medical field. For example, it could be beneficial for non-compliant patients, but still poses great risks for potential misuse of the device. Well, yeah, I'd say, knowing human nature the way we do. About the size of a grain of sand, I'm back quoting, grain of rice, the device was typically implanted between the shoulder and the elbow area of the individual on the right arm. Once scanned at the proper frequency, the chip responds with a unique 16-digit number, which could be then linked with information about the user held on a database for identity, verification, medical record access, and other uses. The insertion procedure is performed under local anesthesia at a physician's office, so it's easy to do. Privacy advocates raised concerns regarding potential abuse of the chip. Yeah, no kidding. I'm quoting now, with some warning that adoption by governments as a compulsory, that's synonymous with mandate, required, adoption by some governments as a compulsory identification program could lead to erosion of civil liberties as well as identity theft if the device should ever be hacked. In June of 2007, the American Medical Association, the AMA, many of us know by, declared that the implantable, that is, implantable radio frequency ID, RFID, devices may help to identify patients, thereby improving the safety and efficiency of patient care, and may be used to enable secure access to patient clinical information. But in that same year, 2007, in that same year, they had a misnomer here because in that same year, news reports linking similar devices to cancer caused in laboratory animals devastated the impact on the company's stock price and sales. I don't know how they've recovered since then. I didn't look into that, but I say that only to illustrate that it's not without side effects in some cases. Potential future applications. Now, this is potential future applications. And so this kind of gives us a lead on where this rabbit hole is going. And it says here in 2017, Mike Miller, chief executive of World Olympians Association, was widely reported as suggesting the use of such implants in athletes in an attempt to reduce problems in sports due to recreational drugs. In other words, how can we stop our players from smoking dope in their rooms? Or how can, going out at night and, doing cocaine or meth or whatever it may be? How can we watch them more closely? Theoretically, a GPS-enabled chip, this is 2017, 4 years ago now. Theoretically, a GPS-enabled chip could one day make it possible for individuals to be physically located by latitude, longitude, altitude, and velocity. They can even tell how fast you're running, or how fast you're driving, or how fast you're walking, and what latitude and longitude you're at. Such implantable GPS devices are not technically feasible at this time. However, if widely deployed at some future point, implantable GPS devices could conceivably allow authorities to locate missing people, good, fugitives, good, those who fled from crime scenes, hit and run. Critics contend, however, the technology could lead to political repression, as governments could use implants to track and persecute human rights activists, labor activists, civil dissidents, and political opponents, criminals, and domestic abusers could use them to stalk, harass their victims, and child abusers could use them to locate and abduct children. And you could add in there Christians as well. And I say that not just off the cuff, brethren, because I say that due to the scriptures. I'm not going to turn there, but you know them. Daniel 7, he's going to wear out the saints. Who? The beast is going to wear out the saints. He's going to contend with the saints, and he's going to win over them. What is that all about? It's about persecution. It's about Christians being taken to task for their dissidence against the government. That's what this is about. And that's what the Bible talks about even in the fifth seal. In Revelation chapter 6, you know these scriptures. The fifth seal. After the fourth seal comes the fifth seal. What is the fifth seal? It's persecution against Christians. That's what that's all about. It plugs right into Daniel 7. Without a doubt. The Bible's very continuous. There's a continuum. I've often said the Bible is a saga. It's a story. One dot connects to the other. It's one big, long story. Basically, the story of one man's family, yes, Abraham, the nation of Israel, and all the kids. But the reality is also that in prophetic writ, a lot of all what appears to be perhaps helter-skelter, dots here and there, all do indeed connect. They do. And a lot of what we read in the Bible, certainly prophetically speaking, claims, your Bible claims, will indeed occur. I submit, brethren, to all of us, the technologies are moving that way to facilitate the kinds of things we read prophetically in the Bible. Back quoting on the same Wikipedia article. Since modern payment methods rely upon RFID, NFC, it is thought that implantable microchips, if they were to ever become popular in use, would form a part of the cashless society. VeriChip implants have already been used in nightclubs such as the Baja Club. So there it is again. This is from Wikipedia, just confirming what this guy wrote that I was quoting here before from the ridingthebeast.com. So they already know from Wikipedia that the Baja Resort is using chips, where it says here, the club for such purposes allowing patrons to purchase drinks with their implantable microchip. And then they have references to other individuals with regards to additional information, which just happens to have Bill Gates included. So we continue here with this quotation off of this article that I had got Riding the Beast, and we continue with essentially the Rotterdam Beach Club in the Netherlands and the Bar Soba in Glasgow, Scotland, have already successfully introduced this microchip implant as a form of buying and selling. As a matter of fact, the quote of the CEO of the Baja Beach Club, Conrad K. Chase, director of the Baja Beach Club International, said this about the following with regard to injectable microchips. He said this, quote, "Everyone embraced the electronic payment application. My customers like the fact that they do not have to carry a credit card or an ID card with them. With the VeriPay system, they no longer have to worry about their credit cards getting lost or stolen. Baja Beach Club in Barcelona, Spain, launches microchip implantation for VIP members." Whoa. Wow. You got a microchip? No. Yeah, come on. Get one. You know. So this goes on and continues with some of these things that certainly are used to motivate and compel people to get them, and is quite used quite prominently now in these resort areas. Just as an illustration, although we are using our phone for many of what I'm about to say, but the principle is the same. It's just a matter of putting this in your skin, if you get my drift. And in this case, we already are using, for instance, MasterCard PayPass, which is a contactless payment watch. You got the Apple Watch that you can do that. I look at my granddaughter, but she's got one, so she knows what I'm talking about. In these regards, you can, they call it, even one of their slogans is tap and go, you know, because it's quicker, that kind of a thing. So the technology is progressing and getting bigger and better and faster and more convenient and easier to insert and put into human beings. I continue on, though, now. What about the forehead? We've been talking about the hand. What about the forehead? Well, interesting. The forehead is a bit more tricky, and I'm quoting now, but no less obvious. Some suggest that a microchip will be implanted under the skull cap and networked with the brain for some type of mind control. The scientific advancements in neurobiology make mind control a distant possibility in this fashion. Now, many of you are probably aware of the MK Ultra program the CIA conducted back in the 50s with regards to mind control and silent assassins that could be triggered with some kind of device and or even with some kind of a meeting, what have you, that they claim, wink, 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 I don't know for sure, but they claim they've disbanded that and destroyed all the records of that particular MK Ultra program. But this kind of a thing would make MK Ultra look literally primitive, because this would now be machine and man, and you could actually control the man or the woman through neurobiology triggers. Now, again, this has not been developed. I'm just saying these are the directions this technology is moving in. And what they're saying oftentimes does come to fruition, ultimately, through the engineering departments of many companies. Nevertheless, I'm back quoting now, the old has met the new. Get this, we've got a one step up on the microchip, because the technology on microchip is, it's a microchip. It's like a piece of rice. It's a piece of sand. It's got this kind of, it's a physical item. Well, why can't we just tattoo people with some kind of ink? So here you've got old meeting the new, a company by the name of Somark invented an invisible RFID ink. This ink is currently used in tattooing cattle, and there's every intention to use it on humans. The permanence of Somark's ink is questionable. Even tattoos are removable. Now, what is Somark? Well, Somark's purpose, they have a patent, Somark does, to a system, Somark technology, I'm quoting, off of AboveVetoSecret.com. And AboveTopSecret.com. It says here, patent Somark ID systems. The Somark technology is based on ink tattoo unique to the industry. We have a competitive advantage with lower price point, 100% retention, easy application, reliable identification. What's more, injection of our product is short and simple. No shaving is required, and the process takes only a few seconds. Technology overview. Somark Identification Systems is a chipless radio frequency identification platform. Typical RFID systems use a microchip and antennas embedded in a tag affixed to an object. The Somark chipless system eliminates the high cost of microchips and antennas, instead using simply an electronic ink to create the identification tag. This ink is deposited directly onto or within the object, which creates a seamless integration of the object and the identification of that object. Substrates. Since the Somark ID tattoo is simply an ink and not a complicated assembly consisting of microchip and antenna, the Somark ID tattoo can be placed on or within virtually any material. Emphasis, anywhere standard ink could be placed is a possible ID location or substrate that could be used to put this mark on. So here again, you have the technology that's being developed that is going even one step further and even eliminating the possibility of microchips. Back to the article again, writingthebeast.com, and I'm quoting again, the acceptance of such is already being eased into hospitals, back on chips, by the way, And newborns are currently being tracked while in hospitals to avoid mix-ups, kidnappings, and this tracking is made possible through an external device dubbed Halo. It's a technology from EXI Wireless, a company previously acquired by Verichip again, and now owned by Stanley Healthcare. It's interesting that Halo devices are worn around the wrist or ankle. They are like a bracelet. They're not an implant, they're just like a bracelet. But has a name that is associated with the head, Halo. A Verichip implanted in the forehead would emit a literal radio frequency halo. And it would result, let's see here, a radio frequency. And later on, they're talking about the possibility, and they show a picture here of a baby. And you know how when babies are born, they're, in the middle of their head is soft? It's very soft. The skull is not yet completely closed up. And they're talking about taking newborns and injecting microchips in their brain at the beginning, so right when they're born, so that they can then be, facilitated with whatever they have in mind, whoever they may be. Again, this is not being done. Not being done, but it is being thought about. It is being considered. It is being designed and developed. And money is being put into the research and R&D for these kinds of particular products. So, in closing here, technologically speaking, and I'm back quoting from this article, ridingthebeast.com, technologically speaking, an implanted microchip is a natural step in personal identification. And where there is identifying technology, there is security, especially when money is indeed involved. And this goes back to Bitcoin or any other type of what you could say cryptocurrency, in that it allows for, futuristically, if there would be a world currency and the American US dollar does get knocked off the pedestal of becoming of being the world's reserve currency, and there is some kind of a international currency now used that is used through the internet through a cryptocurrency process via the IMF, the UN, who knows what globalist movement and the machinations of what China is doing with their Belt and Roads initiatives of globalism will ultimately come to grips with, especially in light of the fact that the United States of America is indeed printing money like a drunken sailor. I mean, brethren, we are broke, and they're talking again. It's not bad enough that we've done what we've done over the ensuing months leading up to this new administration, or at least it looks like. The fact remains is that, again, they're talking about $1.9 trillion to be printed up. Where's that coming from? Washington, the Treasury, they got the machines in the basement. I don't want $2,000. You don't need to send $2,000 to me. I didn't want the $600. You know? I mean, when does it stop? When does it stop? When does it stop? When the U.S. no longer is viable. And the the world loses confidence in the purchasing power of the American dollar, because the American dollar is not worth anything anyway, other than the paper and the ink that it's printed on for that much value. But with that being said, the fact remains is that this technology does lead to Bitcoin or the type of cashless society that cryptocurrencies afford when one thinks about these particular technologies. So I can see I ran out of time. Wow. And we still have quite a distance to go down this rabbit hole. I wanted to introduce to you next artificial intelligence, but there's no way I'm going to get through it. So let's pick up one more time. I'm sure we'll finish it the next time with where we go, because I don't want to rush through this. I really do want to get all of us. It's important, brethren, with the world we're living in today, and with the kinds of vaccines that are being developed, and of which how things are, as you will see, these items being dispensed, is important for you to grasp understand, with the information so that you can evaluate how far you want to allow the conditioning that you and I are in now. We are being conditioned. We're living in a world that a little by little continues to incrementally remove our freedoms. 2001 was a benchmark, 9/11. 2008, the crash of the economy, where we were told manufacturing, never again will America be a manufacturing nation. Never again will the GDP rise above 1.5%. Never again will these jobs come back. We've got to keep pushing them out of the country, we were told, commencing 2008 through about 2016. And then 2016 came, and here we are 2020, and we've got over a 3+ GDP. Jobs are coming back. The stock market is going crazy. Yeah, we're printing money like crazy too, but with all that being said, the fact remains is that what was told going back 12 years to 2008 was in 4 years illustrated to be nothing more than a very gross miscalculation or just an outright lie because an agenda was being worked. But putting that to the side, the reality of it is what we're dealing with today is the backdrop of a lot of things that are developing in the ways that are designed to remove our freedoms. Some of you remember, I traveled in my business, 25 years of water treatment, traveling the country as an international accounts manager in water treatment and so forth. I flew for 25 years through the 80s and the 90s, and of course, actually a little bit of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And the fact remained is the way you fly today, some of you in this room, like my granddaughter, my grandson, they have no idea of what it would be like to walk into an airport and not be, basically patted down, walk through an X-ray machine. That was ridiculous. Never in our wildest dreams did we ever think. Now, if they would remove that, wouldn't it be weird to just be able to walk into the airport? Guess what? You were conditioned. That's what I'm talking about. You're conditioned. I'm conditioned. We're getting more conditioned, and as we get and allow ourselves to be conditioned, brethren, we give up a little bit more. Give up a little bit more. We give up a little bit more. But I'll have more to talk about that, because I think as you begin to see where this rabbit hole leads us, it becomes quite apparent, and I think for all of us personally imperative, to really consider seriously, when do we draw the line? When do we draw the line? But we'll explore that a little bit more next Sabbath. So with that, we'll go ahead and we'll come back with part 5 and hopefully clean it up and finish it.